At this phase of the project, we have the blade now heat treated and tempered. The red color you see is actually from the tempering process. There is a little bit of rust here and there from just the humidity. It's summertime, it's North Carolina, it's kind of humid here. In a little bit of the cleaner areas, you can actually note that there's straw tones, there's a little bit of hint of blue here and there. The general temper that I went for is something where axes and metalworking tools are going to fall into. It's partway between where you would put a big sword, something where it's going to take a lot of beating and have to have some retained toughness, and the opposite spectrum of like a kitchen knife or something more delicate that needs to hold a really sharp edge for a good long time. So we're right smack in the middle. This is a utility hunting everyday survival type knife, so kind of wanted to shoot down the middle of the road with the temper. Happy with how this came out. Everything's really nice. It is officially a knife now, although be it very dull. It's no longer a bar of steel that looks like a blade. At this point, I kind of like to just take a step back and look at it for a little bit. A lot of guys have a plan of attack at this point. Maybe you've had this vision all along and you've set out from the beginning with an end product in mind. I work completely differently. I like to get a shape. I'll get to that point. I'll usually make 8 of these at a time. Just for the video, we've made 1, but normally I wouldn't waste 4 days. We're on day 4 of this process in just 1 knife. So now that we have our knife, it's ready to go. I definitely need to clean up the entire thing, remove a lot more off of the edge and finalize everything on it. There's a lot more work to do, but I kind of like to have an idea of where I'm going to go from here. You won't have to do this, but these are my maker's marks. Good luck figuring that one out, keeping that secret. Normally before I'd heat treat it, I'd slide this around and kind of find a good place for it to go. Take a marker and just kind of general idea of maybe where my handle is going to go. And I'll find a little spot for my maker's mark and drill a hole. And on this particular knife, my blade's going to actually come back more, so there's not really a whole lot of room for this. And that's okay. I'm going to set it in the handle somewhere down here, so I don't have to worry about maker's mark right now. That'll be towards the end. But now the fun kind of starts to begin. I'm not going to do anything just yet. I just want to get an idea. So what I've done is I've pulled out some pieces of wood that I feel, or pieces of handle material that really do a specific job. Everything's a little different, and when I pull wood out, or if I'm collecting stuff, I'm looking for certain things. Padauk and this ebony blackwood, I'm not sure what this is. I got it in the scrap bin the one day. It was a big long thin sheet of it. It's perfect for making handles out of. This is dead black. That little bit of tan kind of fades away when you start to polish it, and then this turns into like a nice ruby red. But all in all, it's pretty monotone wood. It's got nice grain, but it's nothing over the top. So kind of look at these as like baseline things. Got to accentuate something crazy like this true stone with something a little bit more drab like the blackwood. It'll make this pop all that much more. So things I like to use best, exotic hardwoods are perfect. You don't have to do a whole lot to them. They're sturdy, they don't warp, and they're very, very dense and durable. Another wood I really like to use, which is going to fall into the vertical lines category of handle material, is Buckeye from Mexico. This is a very dense tropical hardwood. It's very popular in instruments, a lot of guitars. It can have some really wild contrasting figure, and I don't think I need to, but just for the demonstration, we'll hit it with a little bit of alcohol so we can take a better look at it. just get a really awesome, bright contrast, warm tones, and this stuff comes into play a lot if you want to add a little bit of an angle. Makes great spacers, has really cool end grain. Can't really use that much for the blades, but if it falls towards the end, you get some really nice pattern developments. Moving into the more rare and exotic stuff, I always pull this big block out. I'll never use this thing. I just like looking at it. This is a hunk of Ambonia, which is one of the rarest trees in the world. It's illegal to cut down, but storms happen and trees get old, trees fall down. So if it's already dead or it's very old, then it's up for grabs. And this stuff is really, really hard to get a hold of, and it's even more difficult to find with this cool fractal two-tone sapwood combination thing. So the darker reddish brown wood is the dead, I don't know if it's dead, but like the harder inside part of the wood, the actual wood part. And the yellow here, if you can imagine, there's tree over here, and then there's bark right here. This is the green sapwood on this tree. It's nice and yellow, it's soft. This piece had to go through stabilizing, which is where we vacuum seal liquid acrylic into the wood, and it makes it super hard and dense, and this is almost indestructible. It's like a plastic fossil. When we're doing the stabilizing, which has to be done to most of the wood that I use, most of this really crazy pretty burl wood, and it starts out like styrofoam almost. It's practically useless as a woodworking instrument, but when you start to stabilize it, you can do some really crazy things now. What we did with this is called a double dye, and I took a orangey red solution which contained the liquid acrylic, and I put this single block like this before it was cut into the tank and let it soak up for, I don't know, a set amount of time, just enough to get a lot of orange in there but then leave a bunch of empty spots. So we went and cooked it, and the heat activates the resin, which hardens it and therefore acts as a resist to any of the other parts of the wood that we would have needed to have stabilized. So once it's kind of half covered in plastic, nice and hard, we'll go through and cut it, and boom, you got a book match. So at that point, we'll put it in, this time the green, and let it sit in there for a day or two and just soak up and make sure that all the nooks and crannies were filled. And then when you take it out and cook it, you have this really awesome fourth dimensional fractal burl thing that looks like it belongs in outer space. I'm probably going to use this piece. Just something else too, Buckeye is really cool. This is naturally two-toned like that. This is from, can't remember if this was California or Oregon, but I got a big hunk of this burl from a guy a couple years ago, and it was an exceptional piece. This has a lot of light colored pieces to it, which is the actual wood. The dark blue or black grayish kind of stuff, and here's the stabilizing resin. Oh, it's hard and crunchy on there. The dark blue parts are a fungal infection, so this is a controlled rot process. Buckeye is something that falls victim to just, I don't know, it's in a moist environment. It's ideal for doing this, but if you've ever seen those black lines that run through lumber especially, but if you're ever even out hiking in the woods and you see a rotten log, and you kick it open and there's just that black line that runs the entire way through a section, that's rot. That's beetles and fungus and all sorts of stuff eating the wood and decomposing it. So you can kind of work that to your advantage, very much like a very nice bottle of wine or some pickles, cured meats. There's all sorts of things that are rotten in the world that are the best parts of life. So Buckeye burl is definitely one of those. I'll go back to the true stone for a second. So as I'm sitting here talking, I really like this orange and this green combination here. And I'll get into liners when it's more time, but I think this is something that we're going to use on this knife. True stone is this really cool stuff. They use it for countertops. pen makers and knife makers alike use this stuff, but it is not cheap. As you can see, this little tiny block was 13 bucks, and this was one of the less expensive pieces because it's puke 70s green, and I'm gonna make it work. So, this stuff is cultured stone or mineral. I'm not 100% sure on the process. I've tried to do research on it, but this stuff's too cool to let the secrets out. I've come to two conclusions though. It is a polymer product because it smells like a bouncy ball when you start to cut it, that they mix leftover stone dust. So it is actually marble in here, but it's marble mixed up with some kind of acrylic, so it's easy to shape. They come in all sorts of kinds. This is white matrix. A lot of people will call it gemstones. I think that's because it's called that on the website, but it's really, I don't know, it's plastic. I can cut it with a knife. This stuff's really, really neat. It does look like real stone. It doesn't feel like it. It adds a lot of weight and it's super durable. I don't know, I think this is one of my favorite things to work with. It's getting harder to find though. So true stone's really, really cool. And then over here I have some carbon fiber I got from my buddy on Instagram, Ghost Carbon Fiber. He's got a really cool website too. The thing I like best about getting my carbon fiber from him is it's all one-of-a-kind pieces for the most part. There's some things that are standard, but when he gets really choice stuff like this smoke pattern, it gets put up on Instagram and it's first come, first serve. So if you're not watching that and nabbing things, you're not gonna get them. And I like the Wild West concept of shopping for things like this. It's more fun for me to get them, and you're not gonna find anything more different or more unique than that because there isn't anything else. So Ghost Carbon Fiber is pretty cool. I may or may not incorporate some of that into this, maybe towards the backs of pommel. I always leave two little pins here on the back for the option of adding something as a pommel. So if we did want to do brass or bronze or whatever, could totally do that there and then use those two holes to peen it on, and we'll still have our lanyard hole. So I'm gonna start cleaning the blade up before we do that. I just got excited. I want to talk about handles for a minute. So I'm gonna start to get all the sludge off here. We're gonna go back and do exactly what I did before in the other video, so I won't show that. I'll come back here with a nice shiny new knife, and then we'll discuss about options on what to do with the boring parts, like this completely full tang with nothing going on and this big fat tip over here that we have to rectify. So hang tight, we'll be back, and I'll have a nice and shiny new knife waiting for you.